Hi all, my name's Hannah and I'm the C5 nut. Well, it's obvious that I've done something, and yeah. My green C5, so Princess, it's been on the road for about 2 weeks now, and I noticed there's a few issues with it. As soon as you go to accelerate, there's just nothing there, which made me think of maybe I should go down the tuning road and things like that. And you know, the point is, I've had this car for so long, I know its quirks, and it's not doing what it normally does. So I've been scratching my head and started sorting the little naggly bits that was going wrong with the car. So the first thing was the car kept on complaining of DPF fluid low. Well, it's called PAT fluid, but it's almost like AdBlue on today's diesel engines, and it came up with 2 faults that couldn't delete, one of which turned out to be the main ECU. So I've replaced the ECU. It gave me a completely different fault altogether, which was a sensor on the fuel cap. So the car, when you go to a petrol station, the car actually knows when you're putting diesel in it, and when it knows that you're putting diesel in it, it then puts the chemical, that PAT fluid, into the main tank. And I won't go too technical because I'll lose you. So I had a break in the wire going to the sensor, so I fixed that, and everything for about a week has been fine. Now I have been trying to make it regen, because obviously fault's been like that for a while. Car hasn't regen. I took it for a long drive, and sometimes the turbo was fine, and others you just put your foot down and it's just nah. You might as well learn French by the time you hit 30 miles an hour. That's how slow it was, and I'm getting a bit concerned because we're coming up for about 3 weeks until the national, no, not the national, the Northern Rally, which is the start of the rallies. So we're about 3 weeks away. I'm humming and ahhing if it was a DPF or a turbo, and my car is looking a bit sorry for itself. Yeah. What can I say? There is a jack under there, and there is a jack, but there's also an axle stand under there as well. So my poor car, bless it, it's been at a weird angle. Now, when I did pull the pipe off for the inlet manifold and touch the turbo, knew for 100% the turbo was gone. Now, I wasn't going to do a video on how to take it apart and all this stuff, because in all honesty, I can't remember how to change the turbo on one of these. I mean, last time I did one of these was about 10 years ago. So, and plus the fact it's, I mean, my face says it all really, but it is a dirty job, and trying to film and do it's not worth filming and trying to do it at the same time. So I've been on to the suppliers, so there's a choice of 2. I could go for brand spanking new, but it's going to set me back about 1,200 quid, and the best part of about a month for it to turn up. It would have to come from France. Or the second option, which is a remanufactured one for 700 quid. Now, I don't really want to go for manufactured, because when I had the issue with the car back in 2013, where I did change the engine, I changed all the sensors, I changed the intercooler, I even went and put a new turbo on it, but it's still giving me the same fault. Turned out to be a wiring issue on the car, and I did have the ECU tested out and all that. Long story short, the wiring had built-in resistors, and there was a break in the wire we sorted that out, but obviously that's put the tolerance out for the sensor, so hence why it kept giving us a fault code. Well, all this is all learning, so I've learned my mistakes from that. But I did buy a reconditioned turbo, and yeah, well, supposedly this is my I don't suppose anything, it is my reconditioned turbo that I put back on this car in 2013. Now, since 2013 up to present day, I think I've done probably about 20,000 miles, if that. Yeah, in my stock, I have another turbo. Okay, it is a second-hand turbo. It is for this engine. But while I work out if I'm going to go down the roads of getting this turbo repaired, or if I'm going to spend another 1,200 quid buying a brand spanking new turbo, I got to weigh the costs a little bit. So while I do that, I'm going to stick the second-hand turbo in. Now, rule of thumb is, I normally say people, look, don't stick second-hand turbos unless you actually trust it 100%. Now, I have checked the turbo. It is in relatively good condition. Now, I don't know if you can see, we're going to see if we can zoom in a little bit. Right, so now if I put the tweezers on there, see if I can zoom in a little bit. Yeah, I shouldn't be getting that play. Let's try to... Yeah, I shouldn't be getting that play. Yeah, that's well and truly gone. But the other one, it's solid. So, fingers crossed. This has only got to last about a month. So, okay, I've got to do my job twice, but then it's on my own car. As long as I can get up to the Northern Rally and back again, I'll be happy. And then I'll buy another turbo. Yeah, it's just, that is completely shot. So that explains why I haven't been getting enough boost going into the engine to then make it go. So, yeah. I did check all the vacuum pipes. I mean, the vacuum pipes down here, these valves do go faulty from time to time. I did change all the pipes to silicone, multicolored ones, obviously. Yeah, I think all the pink stuff was turbo related, and the purple was either inlet, as in pressure going into it, or like unnecessary valves and stuff. There's quite a lot of pipes going all over the place. So yeah, I will need at some point get some new pipes. I might even go as far as colour coding it. So anything to do with the turbo I'll put in red, anything to do with the swell flaps or the other flaps for the inlet I might do as like green, and possibly the E-jar I might even do blue or something stupid like that. I mean, you can get all sorts of colours. Yeah, but then that's my autistic side coming out again. So guys, I'll bring you back possibly once I put my car back together. I wasn't actually planning on taking the car apart today, but just that little niggly thing in my back of my head going, no, you got to sort it, you got to sort it. And yeah, I'm fairly lucky that that turbo didn't go like really bad. I mean, if that spline had come out all the way, she'd be sucking all of her oil. And then we've got diesel runoff, which, diesel runoff, which basically means unless you can dump the clutch and just hope to God you can stop this engine, you just got to walk away until it goes bang. But yeah, fortunate enough that didn't happen. And if it did happen, I got a spare engine that I could put in it, which I don't want to do again, because that means this car would have had 4 engines instead of 3. So yeah, the joys of cars, unfortunately. Well, yeah, I've worked on this car so much, yeah. Right guys, I'm going to leave it here. I'm going to crack on and get this turbo fitted. Right guys, so you could probably already tell that I had a bit of a clean. Well, yeah, just my car is now back on its wheels. I did test drive it. Now, you probably think this is not the right way to do it, but this is how I've done it. So normally, rule of thumb is if you stick a new turbo in, you put new oil in it and all that stuff. Because it was a second-hand turbo, I didn't do that. I'm actually going to do that tomorrow. The reason behind is it's a second-hand turbo, right? So the bearings have already, done a few thousand miles, but there's still pressure in the actual main oil lines of the whole entire engine. So when you do turn the engine on or start it, within a few seconds the turbo's got oil. Now if I was to drain the oil filter and all that stuff and put fresh oil in it, it's going to take a while for the turbo to then get some oil. And by that time, the damage may have already been done to the turbo, which then means I have to then change it again. So yeah, there's a bit of sense to my madness, but that's how I see it. I did take it for a little spin just to make sure that the turbo was actually functioning correctly, and it seems to boost really well. It's hard to believe it's actually a 2.2 HDI and not a 3 litre V6, but yeah, there's a lot more power in it now than there was previous. So the car's gonna stay in the workshop overnight. I'm gonna do an oil change first thing in the morning. Yeah, I'm perfectly happy with where we are with this car. So fingers crossed it will get me up to Leeds and back for the National. Now, on this video I did mention regards to that my green car has had 3 engines, and it has, but it wasn't her fault. The first engine blew up because my mate who I bought the car from, who sadly isn't with us right now, he's passed away. But in 2009 he bought the car in January, didn't check all the levels, and driven it from Bristol back down to Plymouth and got as far as Weston-super-Mare, which is possibly about half an hour away from Bristol, and it burst its coolant pipe. But my mate, being my mate, carried on going. All the light, he just carried on going. Why he did that, I don't know. To the point of the engine got so hot, it put the conrod straight through the block. So it was a nice great big hole in the side of the engine. So that engine was complete write-off. There was no saving it or anything like that. It had gone. So I put another engine in it. So my mate knew my old boss, and they did some sort of deal. So I then worked on the car. So I put a new engine in. I did all the work to it, and it took a while to get an engine for this car. But literally, my mate had it the first week of March, drove it for a week, and then came up to me and said he needed to sell the car. Blah blah blah. I then bought the car off him. So I know the history on this car. Then in 2013, when I had a fault code and I couldn't, bone of my. This is before I even knew about the C5. So I'm like you guys who just like the car but didn't really understand it much, and yeah, I learnt the hard way. I spent £4,000 on this car, did the turbo, did the intercooler, did all the sensors, had the ECU tested out on it, had the BSI tested out on it. I even went and put a new engine in it, and it still kept coming up with the same fault code. There was a break in the wiring loom and we thought we fixed it, but it then later turns out that there's resistance in the wires, and by where the brake was, that's basically not the resistance out. Anyway, 40 quid wiring loom later has now bought the car back, because back then I was this far from giving, like, just had enough, get rid of it. But the wiring was the last thing to change on it. If it still didn't do it, then it would have gone. So yeah, the car was holding by a thin thread of me keeping it, which to this day I'm glad I actually kept it, even though back time it's a bit of a twat. But yeah, so that's how we ended up with 3 engines on this car. So yeah, I don't really want to put another engine in it, because it's a bit of a mission. Yeah, well, that's C5s for you. Right, so I've got some interesting news to tell you. Lately with what's going on with the channel and a lot more C5s turning up, I've had C5s come from bloody Lancaster. My mate Mark lives all the way up north somewhere, and he came down with his and had work. Then we've got Sicily, the well-known C5 on YouTube. That came all the way from Essex. And about a week ago, I did another C5, and that came all the way from Wales. So clearly there's a bit of a demand for my services for the Mark 1s and 2 C5s. So, thinking out loud, I'm launching a company that I'll be doing not full time yet. Going to see how it goes. So it'll be part time that I'll be working on my company, but the launch date is the national. So yeah, guys, get ready for the national. It's in July. I will put some details down below, and I'm calling all C5s. Don't care, Mark 1s, 2s, whatever. If it's a C5, you need to come along. It's about time these cars got a bit of loving, and it's about time they got shown some respect. So at the national, there will be like a birthday cake, because technically these cars are 22 years old, and we need to put the C5 on the map. So this year, 2023, is the year for the C5. Right, guys. Yeah, where do we go? Right, well, I'm going to go for a shower. Sadly, I can't take you guys with me, and I think I might break this camera again. So, put it in your diaries. National. Got to go to the national. I want as many, and I mean as many C5s as I can at that national. So, let's see if we can break some barriers, eh? Right, guys, if you like what you see so far, give us a thumbs up. Yeah, please share my videos, because that helps that basically shows YouTube that maybe there is some interesting content that I do on this channel. So yeah, please do that. If you haven't already, please subscribe, and at some point I will do another video. So take care, guys. See you soon.